Alrighty, thank you so much for joining us. We will go ahead and get started here, and we'll have our RMI Program Director, Ajayo Banerjee, give some opening remarks.
Thank you very much. It gives me great pleasure to welcome you all to this fall webinar event organized by the Risk Management Insurance Program. I'm so happy that we've been able to put together a fantastic panel. For you, I think they represent the best of the insurance industry and the best of various segments of the industry. They are very well aware. They have had long careers with the industry, and no one, in my opinion, can be better than them in telling you how the hiring market has been impacted by COVID. And so I don't want to take up too much of your time, but then this is the program for you. And of course, our External Relations Coordinator, Sarah, has worked tirelessly to conceive of this program and to make it a success. I can never thank Sarah enough. She's truly an asset to the program and to the business school. With that, I'd like to hand it on over to Sarah to introduce the panelists. Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you so much, Dr. Banerjee. With that, I will go ahead and introduce our wonderful panelists that we have for you today. We have Pam Adams. She's the president and CEO of ISU Insurance Services of Colorado. ISU is a 138-year-old independent insurance brokerage firm working with businesses and individuals to provide property and casualty insurance. Pardon me. Property and casualty insurance coverages, as well as life, health, and employee benefits protection. Business insurance specialties include technology, related entities, youth sports associations, mines, breweries, and non-for-profit organizations, including independent schools. Genus Dalton is Field Vice President of Business Insurance for Travelers Insurance. Travelers is a leader in personal business and specialty insurance, and the only property and casualty company in the Dow Jones Industrial Average. Travelers has approximately 30,000 employees and 13,500 independent agents and brokers in the United States, Canada, the United Kingdom, and Ireland. Krista O'Rourke is Vice President of Agency Relations and Safety Services at Pinnacle Assurance. Pinnacle is Colorado's largest workers' compensation carrier, established over 100 years ago and serving 56,000 companies. Workers' compensation insurance is there to protect employers and their injured workers by paying for medical expenses and a portion of the lost wages when an employee is injured on the job. Welcome to our panelists and attendees. Thank you so much for being our panelists today. Just for our program attendees, I do want to let you know that we have a Q&A session later in the program. So you can use the Q&A at the bottom to submit your questions to us just to get you prepared. And with that, we'll go ahead, and I just want everyone to briefly share some of the main ways that your company has been impacted by COVID-19 overall. With Krista to start, please.
Sure, thank you, Sarah. I would say there are probably two that come to mind, two impacts. The first would be to our employees. We have about 650 employees who are now 100% remote. The good news was we were extremely prepared day one back in March when we needed to switch to a remote environment. I think we've all underestimated, though, the length that it would be. And impacted employees, it's impacted their work differently, especially those who had been out in the field, those who met with our customers or those who would meet with our agents. And the truth is, it's been tough on people. We've got employees who are struggling with daycare issues, remote learning issues, and educating school-age children, or possible family members who have been impacted either by the virus or who have been impacted financially. We have been working very hard to keep morale up for our employees just for that reason, to keep up that connection in a virtual work environment, in a virtual workspace. We do have an amazing culture at Pinnacle Assurance, one that's very close, very connected, very caring. And so we work very hard every day to keep that alive. We know we won't be returning to our building until next year in any real formal capacity, but we do know we can operate differently. And the second area I would say is probably the economic impact to our customers. As you said, having close to 56,000 customers here in Colorado who have been impacted, and many of those are small businesses. So we've seen our customers who have faced having to lay off employees, have reduced workforces, and unfortunately some who have actually had to shut down. So it's been an opportunity where we've seen the impact of what customer outreach, how you can improve that, reaching out to our customers, offering the flexibility that they need right now, whether that's payment options or a customer service team being able to provide any of the services and service that they need. It's been interesting. I would tell you that if you look, you will see some business have actually seen positive impact. And I just use the Amazon delivery companies as an example. Many of those are independent companies, and just think how many times a day you see an Amazon delivery truck in your neighborhood. So it has definitely had an impact on our customers and our employees.
Thank you so much. Sorry, lost my unmute button. And next, with Pam, if you could share how it's impacted ISU, please.
Sure, thank you. Yeah, it's impacted us some of the same ways as Pinnacle, pretty much instantly. Our work locale changed. We had many folks that were working from home part of the time anyway, but then a few that were not. That had typically been a perk after being with us for several years, and it became a perk for everyone instantly. Another logistical item was just upgrading our phone systems more quickly than we had anticipated to a voice over IP system that could be answered by anyone, anytime. The disruption to our clients and such definitely hit us as well. But as Krista mentioned, some up and some downs. Our restaurant clients were devastated instantly, and some of our clients with a lot of business related to the airport. Then we had others that have been thriving in terms of, from a technology standpoint, their services have been more needed. So just adapting to who needs us more and most, and in what ways. Some of the accessibility to our clients and our carriers changed. Some of the carriers, like Pinnacle and Travelers, I'll say, seamlessly migrated to a work from home environment, and others didn't quite have that platform as well set up. So initially, as we were working to contact our carriers about client issues and such, sometimes it was a little harder to reach them initially, but that eventually got worked out. Also, like Krista mentioned, we have employees with competing priorities, trying to manage homeschool while they're also trying to work. So just elevating our level of flexibility was really key. And last but not least, it is tougher in a remote environment, it seems, to keep your corporate culture throughout the organization, to make sure folks feel included when maybe you're not able to stop by and see them as much, or that kind of thing. But other than that, we're fortunate to be in an industry that we can work remotely and be still serving our clients.
Definitely, thank you. And Genus.
Thank you. Well, first I want to express my gratitude for having the opportunity to speak to this group. I will say that for the most part, we felt at Travelers a lot of the same issues that Krista and her teams and Pam have. I feel like the timing of this, not that it was good, but it had this occurred 2, maybe 3 years ago, we would have had a much harder time getting up to speed. Just real quickly, what happened was at the beginning of March, as things started to, raise some alarm bells, we had indicated to folks that if they felt uncomfortable coming into work, they were welcome to stay at home. And then by March 9th, 10th, in that area, really over a weekend, we went to mandating that all non-essential employees work from home. And we're talking about 30,000 employees, from executives all the way across the organization to all of our customer service staff, our claim folks, the people that go out and look at our prospective and existing clients. So it was quite an undertaking, and kudos really to our entire IT and infrastructure staff, because as I said, 2 years ago, we had phones on our desks. Today, we use the computer phones. About 2 or 3 years ago, we also went to nearly every person has a laptop. And it was really more of a weather contingency plan, because we have offices in Houston and New Orleans and Charlotte and other areas, California, and even at our customer service account manager staffs, we had them equipped with laptops. And so they had been used to that. And every time, even in Denver, when, the forecast was for a couple drops of snow, we would tell people, take it home with you. If you need to, then you can work. So that's just sort of from the employee. Yet, we all worked really hard to try and maintain engagement. I agree with Krista. As this has gone month after month after month, it starts to get a little bit more challenging. There's a little bit of weariness and sort of like that rallying cry where everybody kind of bonded together over, what was at the time seemed like an urgent emergency situation, as now there doesn't seem to be as much of a certain end. I will just add too that as we talk about ways that our company has been impacted, is there is some uncertainty now from a larger picture in terms of the industry. Like in the past, our teams and Pam's team and Krista's teams and Pam teams, we love to get together. We really felt the importance of making those personal connections. And now we are drawing on those existing connections. It's just a little bit harder to make them from scratch, to start to build those. And then from an industry standpoint, we might get into, there's going to be some longer term coverage issues that are going to have to be resolved and discussed, as well as just overall our office environments, whether it's at the agency level or at the carrier level. We've proven that we can work virtually. It's just a matter of how much virtual do we really feel is beneficial. And we'll get into hopefully some conversations about people starting new in the industry and the importance of, yes, we can do it virtual, but there's some things missing there that we feel like in person really just, there's no replacement for.
That totally makes sense. Thank you for sharing. Next, I do have some targeted questions for each of our panelists. And I'd like to start with Genus, please. Genus, how has travelers' recruitment strategy changed as a result of COVID?
The strategy itself hasn't necessarily changed. So we're still looking to bring on new college graduates. We will still continue our internships. This past summer, we did have to move to a 100% virtual environment with our internships. Probably not the experience we would want, but we felt like at least we were able to give those students something, and we had made them commitments to. It's more the tactics that are changing. So we are doing all of our interviewing, and we have continued. We've just gone virtual. And I would tell you that was something that I personally had a bias against. But I've grown to say, maybe those first couple, usually there's 1, 2, 3 rounds of interviews. Those early ones where you're just trying to assess maybe a broader group of candidates, there's nothing wrong with doing virtual interviews. And even we're going to be doing some shadow days. You know, we can get by with that. We can do some internships that way. But we're still very committed to bringing on some strong talent. We want new blood in the industry. And we, as with CU Denver and the risk management program, very, very committed to trying to expand a diverse and be inclusive and try and broaden the groups that are coming into the insurance industry, because we feel like there's a benefit there to having a broader perspective, whether it's experience or background or different geographies as well.
Thank you. And Krista, I wanted to ask you, how are COVID-19 cases handled with workers' compensation here in Colorado?
Sure. First, our approach with a COVID claim and handling that is no different than any other type of claim for a workplace exposure to contamination or illness. So we have not changed the overall claims process. So for any claim, and not just COVID related, an employee has to prove by what we say a preponderance of the evidence, or I would say really highly likely, that the infection arose out of or in the course of their employment. So our claims team, as they do with any claim, thoroughly gathers the information. They would review the timeline in this case. They talk with the employee, they talk with the employer to really make that determination if a claim is compensable. And claims processes and procedures and payments are highly regulated by Colorado statute. So there isn't a lot of wiggle room per se. So the overall process has not changed. What I can tell you also is that, you know, our first thought was that this could be really difficult if we have, you know, a widespread virus in how to determine, did somebody get COVID in the workplace, or was it just in the community and through their normal, you know, interactions? But I can tell you what we have seen is the cases, the claims that have come in have been pretty clear. We've been able to make those clear determinations. And a majority of them, I hate to say, but they come from our wonderful first responders and our healthcare workers. That has also been the primary area who has been impacted and where we've seen the majority of the claims come from.
I'm sure. Thank you. And for anyone out there who is working as a first responder, maybe knows someone, we really appreciate their service right now. And Pam, I wanted to check with you, what hiring and recruiting challenges are uniquely faced by independent insurance agencies right now?
Sure. In general, one thing unique, and it may be to other industries here and there, but insurance, nobody really likes insurance initially. So they're not attracted to that industry because folks don't like something that you're required to pay for or purchase, or that you see personal injury attorneys advertising against all day long and such. In addition, Genus commented on what might be coming down the pike in terms of coverage changes and such due to the pandemic. That's something that isn't also well received necessarily well with like business clients that maybe didn't used to have a communicable disease exclusion on their policy, and now they do. Then, you know, they're blaming the insurance folks for that and such. So having a higher picture of our industry is just one challenge that probably faces all of us, not just the agency side. But I think another thing that folks don't realize is just the vast array of positions available in the insurance industry. They know that they have an agent maybe or such, but they don't realize all the people behind that agent, whether it's someone with a carrier, whether it's someone in operations or finance at an agency, or marketing or IT, or things like that. So I'm not sure we do a good job as an industry or agency presenting all the different opportunities there are for various types of positions. Personally from an independent agency side, we struggle sometimes competing for employees against folks like Krista and Genus and their bigger companies that may be able to pay a little bit more from a starting salary standpoint, or have very established intern programs or growth programs. So we have to work hard to make sure we can show folks where their opportunity for growth is. The one thing that's great is programs like this and the risk management insurance program. If you talk to folks years ago, you would ask, well, how'd you get into the insurance industry? And they would just say, oh, I just fell into it somehow. They needed a job and they somehow landed in insurance. Whereas now we're lucky to be in a time where folks are much more purposefully choosing the field of insurance. So I feel fortunate about that moving forward and such.
Definitely, thank you. I'm definitely one of the folks that fell into insurance. I came across working for USAA and worked there nearly 5 years before coming to the program. And I wish someone had told me in college, hey, there's this great risk management insurance program in Denver that you should check out, because so many great opportunities. Thank you for sharing. Pam, I do have another question for you. How do you feel like this has been impacted by COVID-19, some of these struggles that you're depicting? Have you seen a lot of impact from COVID, or are you experiencing some of the same struggles, you think?
Yeah, I think there's still some of the perception of the industry struggles and that kind of thing that we're working to change. I think there's actually been a lot of things positive throughout that we're learning about in the hiring process. Like Genus mentioned, yeah, we didn't used to have, our first couple interviews via Zoom or virtually, but that's probably an efficiency that we could be doing, long after we need to. So that was one way that things changed. In terms of our hiring and such, we've been fortunate to be in a position where we've been able to kind of keep our options open. If a certain individual or talent presented itself to us, we were able to say, hey, yeah, this might be a good fit for you. In terms of our recruiting of actual individual positions, when we've needed to fill something, we started it the traditional way in terms of, the posting the availability on Indeed or those kinds of platforms. And then we're fortunate to find 2 great candidates just within the last couple of weeks for positions we were trying to fill. And one thing we did do, knowing that someday we hope to have all of us here back at the office, at least partial times, was make sure they felt comfortable coming in and taking a tour of the office, at least before making that final position. Just feeling like you learn a lot about a firm by seeing how they set up their office, the organization, the professionalism, culture, mission, vision, values, those types of things that I think we all try to portray in our office environments. So that was one thing that we did continue to do when we just made our most recent hires. And then again, I think I might have mentioned, I think we have a lot of folks that love to work from home. We have folks that never want to come back to the office and such, and others that were like, come on, as soon as we went to a little bit safer at home, knowing we had plenty of space here, let me in the office and such. So, but the ability to make sure that everybody can work remotely if need be from practically the day they start has been really helpful.
Great, thank you. And Genus, I wanted to ask you, what has changed in travelers' hiring practices as a result of COVID? I know you touched upon it some earlier.
So like I mentioned, we've gone to basically doing all of our interviewing virtually, which in a lot of ways actually has been good, as I mentioned, because, you know, the timing wise, you don't have travel, you can actually interview candidates that might be, you know, home for spring break or fall break or for the summer times. I think it's kind of made it just a little bit easier in some cases. I'm trying to find the silver linings clearly. You know, we have not allowed people to tour our offices. We have really, because we have a very open, we had just moved to a very open workspace area. And so we haven't really allowed for that. We are allowing a few of our people back in the office on a temporary basis, but we have had some people that, you know, if they're comfortable, we've offered to them, hey, you know, let's meet, you know, at Starbucks, sit outside. One of the things we're very careful about is you know, you don't know people's individual circumstances. And so if they're not comfortable, we certainly don't want to make it feel like that's something they have to do. We just want to make sure that we respect all of that. You know, in terms of looking at staffing, we are kind of keeping an eye on that to see what our needs are going to be, but it's honestly really is something that we typically would do anyway. Around fall time, we would try to assess what are our needs going to be for the subsequent year. And then if we've had interns, we typically look to make offers before the end of the year. We want to make sure we get our strongest candidates possible and have them feel good about their remaining semester. And so just other than that, I mean, we're still going to do, you know, a certain set of interview questions, a certain style. So really, we have not changed a lot of our practices, just maybe trying to figure out, like all of us, how to do this and in a virtual environment.
Definitely, thank you. And Krista, I'd love to hear from you. How has Pinnacle, how have your recruiting and hiring practices changed with COVID?
Sure, and very similar to what Genus and Pam have both expressed. Pinnacle has continued to hire throughout the entire pandemic, and although I would say maybe not as many positions, like Genus also referenced, but that was something we would do anyway. We're always constantly monitoring what our workforce needs are. Still, though, we have hired and onboarded a number of people in underwriting, in claims, in finance, in IT, and like Pam also said, is sometimes people don't see the breadth of opportunities and positions that are in the insurance industry overall. So I would say we're also continuing to see an increased focus on in the technology area and in IT. Simply because we are in a very digital world, even more so now. And like many companies really have that dedication to technology and innovation and such. So that's an area where we still see some strong growth. Because all of our employees still are remote and keeping everybody safe is our priority. We looked at how our onboarding programs or even our training programs, how we needed to just augment those so that people could continue to work from home. But as a new employee, what it looks like to be onboarded and get to know people when you're 100% Zoom and video. And as Pam mentioned, you know, craving that connection and being able to see somebody in the office, because honestly, nothing replaces that in-person availability and conversation, even as much as we all have come and adapted to Zoom, I would say. So it's very similar. I don't see that our hiring or recruiting practices have really changed. We've probably just learned how to get more efficient. And I think we've continued to find the creative ways to keep our employees connected and even learn and listen with training. I think it was last week, one of the alumni, Christina, had commented on, you know, when you're new and you're trying to learn and train, you're missing out on those conversations you get to overhear from your colleagues. So that's something that we're trying to say, how do we patch somebody in to be able to listen to a conversation and still get that opportunity to learn?
Can I add just one more thing?
Yeah, absolutely.
So one of the things I think we are starting to recognize is in the past, we've always had like a very small segment of jobs where we felt they were able to be done effectively remotely. I think this has really shown us that there are people and positions that are just as, if not potentially more productive. You do want to make sure they're still feeling a part of the organization, you know, kind of have a feel for the culture. But I think across our organization, we're going to be a little bit more open to, you know, somebody's in Colorado Springs, but could they do the position is in Denver, or they're in Seattle and the position is in Denver, depending on what it is and their availability to at least, you know, have some interactions. It really, I think, will help all of us be a little bit more open to accepting candidates that, you know, we may have said, well, that may not be the ideal situation for us. We'll be a little bit more open to it.
That makes sense. I feel like definitely everyone right now is having to learn how to be more flexible with COVID, whether that's professionally or personally. So that definitely makes sense. And thank you very much for sharing. We are going to transition into the question and answer session portion of the program. And I do have some questions that have come in, and I will kind of let all of you answer here. Genus, it seems like you were on par with one of our questions here. Monique asked, how has the productivity for employees changed when working from home? If any of you would want to share on that.
I'm happy to start first. I think the first thing, can you hear me? Okay, is that for the most part, people have been very productive. So it's kind of, yes, there are distractions, but at the same time, you don't have the commute. You don't have the travel in between. You don't even have much of a walk from one meeting room to another. It's just kind of like, there's your office, and then you go to kitchen for lunch, and you go to the restroom, and maybe a walk around the building if you feel you need to clear the air. So I think the balance of that really has kept people productive. Occasionally there's technology issues, but when we were in the office, there'd be occasional glitches in systems, there's upgrades and that sort of thing. So I feel like for the most part, the productivity is there. I do believe though that the wear and tear over time is probably something we need to keep aware of. And then, you know, just talking more as in a larger sense, the whole COVID environment, we've been very fortunate here in Colorado for the most part. We haven't had, you know, employees here locally that have been as directly impacted. Certainly we have people who have family members that are first responders or may have had some illnesses or even more tragic than that, but not to the same level as maybe some of the other geographies. So I do feel like in some other places, it's been a lot tougher for them. So the productivity would certainly suffer.
Definitely. Thank
And
you.
I would agree with Genus is, I think even as companies and as employers, I think there might have always been a little hesitancy maybe in the insurance industry that for some reason you really had to be in the office working to measure productivity. And I think this has really opened a lot of employers' eyes, and I know ours, to be able to say, we had work from home options to begin with, but that those could be expanded. And it's something that the workforce is asking for as well. So there's been a lot of great learnings. I hate to say over the, what is this? Are we in the 10th month now? It feels like, but maybe 8th month, that we've all learned that we can probably have more flexibility and adapt. And as Genus also said, considering candidates who might not be as close to the office as they had in the past when we look at our recruiting and hiring efforts.
Definitely. Thank you. Is there anything you wanted to add, Pam?
You know, one thing I will say from a productivity standpoint and how we've seen things kind of circle around, knowing that we have had issues with employees in the past that when they did earn the opportunity to work from home, kind of took advantage of that. You'd find out, oh, yeah, that meant there were 2-hour lunch hours, or there were, afternoons that really they were doing their laundry rather than working. I think the one thing that's different here, related to the virus, and I like Genus's comment, we've learned people and positions that are productive at home. I think everybody just really felt so fortunate to have a position, to be able to still have their job. So I think folks worked really hard to show, yes, I can still do this remotely, whether I'm balancing my kids or this or that. And we had folks change their hours. So whereas maybe they used to have, an hour commute, so they didn't start till later, now they just get up and walk right to their computer and start working. And so they can take off a little earlier in the afternoon to be able to have that extra time at the end of the day. And we do have one gentleman that I don't know that he had worked a day in his life before from home, and now I'm not sure he's going to come back. So folks that, wow, he realized how productive he was once he was there. I think things take your time away from what you're doing at home versus at the office. If you're there, you might run into different people or this or that, but at home, yeah, the doorbell rings or you have a child to take care of. So I think people have worked really hard though to balance all that to demonstrate their productivity.
Definitely. Thank you. I love this question. It is not as targeted towards COVID, but it is from a student. So I want to be sure to have you guys give your tips. Krista asks, what are some entry-level ways of gathering experience to improve your resume? And what are some things, good things to do to prioritize when students start looking for work in the insurance industry?
Oh.
I know it's hard to come up with answers sometimes. Whoever would like to start.
I would say gather, as far as gathering experience, obviously, and the RMI program does a great job connecting the industry with students, with, again, internship opportunities. But I would say any experience that you're having, if you're working your way still through school, is to take those, whatever the experience is, and really capitalize on the skills that you've learned from that. So regardless of what the position is, really highlight some of the skills that you've been able to learn through all of your past employment. And then I think highlighting areas that are important nowadays, creativity, flexibility, the ability to take information and communicate it clearly are just three things that come to mind that I think, one, they've always been important in our industry, and two, they've probably been even more visible and highlighted right now.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely. Thank you.
Yeah, and one thing I might add that doesn't really gain you the experience, but I just feel helps no matter what you're doing. I'm a big believer of, sometimes it's who you know, not what you know, and just continuing to build your network. And as Krista mentioned, just take advantage of whatever, industry you may be working in, even if it's a part-time position. How might that help you in a position in insurance down the road? We have several salespeople that have come from different industries. And so maybe they were in the roofing industry or the sports association industry. They were able to take that background and all the connections and networks and such that they learned of there to then bring it to the agency, whether they were trying to target those types of businesses to insure, or that could be with one of the carriers to learn how to best underwrite those businesses to insure. So yeah, just taking advantage of whatever you can learn from the experiences you're able to have at this point.
Definitely. I want to echo, Pam, what you said about your network. Even during COVID, there are virtual opportunities like this where you can join. You can reach out to panelists on LinkedIn. I've attended a lot of industry events virtually, and I always make sure to follow up with people on LinkedIn afterwards and send them a personalized note about something I really liked that they said. And there's still ways to build your network even now virtually in COVID, and I wanted to emphasize that. Genus, is there anything that you wanted to add?
I was just nodding and saying, yes, it is.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And I know we have just a few minutes left. I just want to thank so much to our panelists. We've heard a lot of great information from you today, and I appreciate you sharing with our students. I have just a few announcements for everyone that I wanted to share before we leave you. Thanks for bearing with me just a moment. So as the Risk Management and Insurance Program, we invite you to join us. For those of you who are unfamiliar with the program, we are a Global Center of Insurance Excellence. We're one of only 34 schools globally to have that designation. And it's because of the opportunities like this we can offer to our students. We give out lots of scholarships thanks to our industry supporters. Every fall and spring semester, we award about $20,000 to $25,000 in scholarships to our students. Anyone at CU Denver who's enrolled in a risk course qualifies for those scholarships, and the vast majority of folks who apply do receive those scholarships. We do have 100% job placement with the program for all of our students looking for jobs upon graduation. As we mentioned, there are lots of opportunities available in the industry, so the RMI program is a great place to be. We even have a student club, Gamma Iota Sigma Beta Mu, that you can join to learn more and have even additional opportunities for networking and events. And for those of you joining who are business professionals, we do have an undergraduate and graduate level certificate program, which is now fully available online. With the flexibility with COVID, some of our faculty members have found that they really enjoy teaching online classes. So it's a great opportunity. As you will see, my email is featured at the bottom of these slides, so please reach out if you would like to know more about any of our opportunities. And I welcome you to check out the link, the bit.ly link, bit.ly/RMI at CUD. We had a lovely feature in Property Casualty 360 earlier this year, so you can learn more about us from another perspective. And I also invite you to join us for events. Our RMI students do get first priority for our events. If you're a current CU Denver student, make sure to sign up for Shadow Day. Krista, Pam, and Genus will all be attending one of the Shadow Day sessions, so you can get to know them a bit better on Shadow Day. That's Friday, October 23rd. But we want students to register by next Friday, October 16th by noon. There are 3 different sessions. There are different executives in each session, and you'll be in small group meetings for that. So it's personalized attention. All majors are welcome. The link is there to register. Highly encourage you to do so. We also have an event coming up next month with the Daniels Fund. Daniels Fund's Ethics Initiative and the Colorado CPCU Society, which is open to the community. So if you are a business member and want to join us, the link is to register there as well, or you can email me if you have any questions, comments, or feedback. And with that, I want to thank everyone again for joining us, and we hope to see you at our upcoming events.
Thanks, Sarah.
Thank you
so much.
Thanks, Sarah.